So in Call of Cthulhu, any edition really, but 7th edition is the one that I'm the game master for. You don't really have playable races. You're just it's just healthily assumed that everyone's kind of human. You might have some variation, like being from the Dreamlands or something like that, or maybe if you want something spicy, one of your players is actually a Deep One hybrid that doesn't know, or is slowly turning into a ghoul, but that's the closest you get to having a different playable race of some kind. I, however, have been a Dungeons and Dragons fan for a very, very long time. I've been a dungeon master for a long time as well. I grew up playing Neverwinter Nights, and I have Neverwinter Nights Enhanced Edition on my Steam account. So I've been a big fan of having different playable races, and I decided to try and make some for Call of Cthulhu. I've made 4 so far, and they're based off of the different playable races from Enclave, which, yeah, that probably comes as no surprise, since I've made that theory on Enclave Dwarves. I'll make another theory here in a minute about the different elves, because there's actually like 2 different kinds of elves. Maybe even 3 different kinds of elves? No. The assassins are not dark elves. They're just dark people. Not dark people like dark people like Lord of the Rings, like the Men of Rune and stuff like that. The Easterlings, evil people. So back on topic, we've got the humans. They're the classic baseline. These are the default stats. So you've got your strength, you've got your con, dex, appearance, power, yada 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 yada. All this is untouched. All this is default, including down to when the education improvement checks and stuff like that happen. Everything is default. Where it gets kind of spicy is the next race, being the halfling. The only thing I really edited about the humans and whatnot is I just made this nice compiled list of the averages, the minimums, the maximums, and what different age brackets would be classified as. So you've got the teenager, young adult, normal adult, middle-aged. I should definitely reword this so it's like middle-aged, early middle-aged. So it should be like early middle-aged adult and late middle-aged adult. Hang on, bear with me a second. Hiccup. Early elder might sound weird, but I mean, it's true. And I'll go through and I'll fix these in my own time later. These are for my own notes for my own game that I'm game mastering for. Halfling is where it first gets a little spicy. So if we go back to human, strength, con, dex, appearance, power, those are 3d6s multiplied by 5. And then size, intelligence, and education, those are 2d6s plus 6 times 5. As you can see here from the averages. And luck is 3d6. And luck is here for a very important reason. It's because some races will have better and some races will have worse luck. Now, what I specifically did is I did not add or remove any dice. This is the same amount of dice, and it's the same modifiers. I just changed what category these go in. So, let's look at strength. Strength is 4d6 for the halfling, right? So for, say, education, I just ripped one of the d6s out of it, and I put it on strength. So instead of 3d6, it's 4d6. And then I took the plus 6 from there, and I put that on con. So now that's 3d6 plus 6. And same thing I did with appearance. I just pulled the 2d6s out of there. And I slapped one in luck, and I put the other in dexterity. Power actually has a plus 6 that I ripped out of size. I slapped that in there. And I ripped the plus 6 out of intelligence, and I slapped that in luck as well. So as you can see, all of the dice, the amount of dice and the amount of plus 6s, those are all the same. Those are all the same. And none of that changed. It's just where they're put or changed. So now you've got different minimums, you've got different maximums, and the reason for these numbers, and if YouTube breaks the compression of this video, if YouTube breaks the quality and how to read this stuff, or my video editor does that, I'll post the stats in the description box. So the description box is going to be really huge, but it will be down there. And I even gave like little explanations, like halflings having 20 to 120, they're supposed to be pretty strong for their small frame. And again, I was basing these off of Enclave. And in Enclave, halfling is one of the combat guys. Halfling is one of the combat heroes that you can play as, so I decided to make the halfling instead of essentially an offshoot of like the gnome or something super happy-go-lucky like the hobbits. I wanted them to be the combat race, because no one's ever really done that except Enclave, and so I really wanted combat halflings. So here are their stats and their age brackets. I wasn't happy with the idea of humans being the quick-living race and everyone having longer lifespans than humans. So I remembered that, okay, well, halflings are supposed to be kind of a wild folk. They're supposed to be kind of a more in-your-face, super fast, aggressive people. So what if they had half the age range of humans? So when humans are ancient, they're like 80 plus. Halflings would be considered ancient when they are 40 plus. So they have way smaller lifespans, but they are very much geared towards fighting. They even have like insane luck and stuff like that. You know, good old halfling luck. And I decided to give them an advantage and a disadvantage. So halflings are going to have a bonus dice to all con rolls. You roll twice and you pick the best option. The reason why I wrote that down as a little reminder is, like, say, temporary insanity. You're aiming to actually fail. I would count having a bonus dice or having advantage for aiming to lose an intelligence saving throw. I would count in that situation whichever the dice give you the higher number would still work. Case by case basis, ask your GM. Always ask your GM. So they have an advantage, a bonus dice to all con rolls. The reason why I decided this is, well, right here, it makes it easier to do speed rolls. So when the halfling is just bricking it down the street, it's a lot easier for them to get a +1 modifier to speed rolls than anyone else because they've got that bonus die. It also makes them more resistant to poison, and that's pretty neat. Disadvantage though, they have a penalty die on all strength rolls. I did this as a, I guess it's kind of like a band-aid fix, because halflings I had decided were going to have, I didn't want their strength stat to actually be hurt, because again, this is supposed to be the combat race, and your ability to do damage with a melee weapon is based on your size, which halflings cannot have a good size stat because they're supposed to be small, and your strength. So if I hurt their strength stat, well, then they're just not geared towards combat, and I didn't want that. So this was my solution. I made a unique rule for halflings. They have a penalty die or disadvantage if you're coming in from D&D 5e, or 4e. I think the advantage-disadvantage system came from 4e. So their ability to attack is only slightly hindered by their small size. Halflings will struggle moving anything heavier than themselves. You want a halfling to break open a door with their foot? They can try, but it'll be a lot harder for a halfling to do it than literally anyone else. It's just the way they are. So now we go on to gnomes. These are the next people. I did not make dwarves because, again, I was basing the stuff off of Enclave, and Enclave doesn't have dwarves. It has humans, halflings, gnomes, and elves. Gnomes are physically pretty similar to humans. They've got the same strength and con and dex, but they have worse appearance. I decided this was going to be because gnomes are going to be considered hyper-focused and very argumentative people. Remember, the appearance stat in Call of Cthulhu is not like, it's not just physical appearance, it's also like your approachability, your sociability, it's like your sense of personality. Having low appearance, you can be incredibly handsome, and everyone just kind of thinks you're an absolute dickhead. That would be having low appearance, but still being a handsome person. So I lowered their appearance a little, and I increased their power some, because gnomes are... I wanted them to be kind of similar to dwarves, so they're considered like supernaturally stubborn. That helps make them kind of magically resistant. Their size is not the same as the halflings, because 1d6 plus 6 is better than just 2d6. This means the halfling can have smaller size than the gnome, and the gnome on average would have more size than the halfling, because they're supposed to be smaller than humans, but gnomes are supposed to still be stout and stocky. If you wanted to try and make a dwarf for your setting, I would recommend just taking the gnome stat block that I've created and maybe lowering intelligence to increase strength. I would say that. Probably leave education because dwarves are supposed to be pretty studious. Other than that, probably leave everything the same. Maybe increase their size to be the same as a human's because dwarves are very wide. So you could probably lower education to increase size and lower intelligence to increase strength if you feel like it. Their intelligence and education are buffed because I wanted gnomes to be very smart and gnomes to be very studious. In Enclave, they are the skilled crafters of Sellenheim, and I wanted to try and incorporate that. Where a lot of these bonuses come from, their luck actually has been hurt a bit. So their size was lowered to increase their intelligence, and their luck was lowered to increase their education, and their appearance was lowered to increase their power. That's it. That was their changes. Onto the age brackets is how they were changed. I'm feeling like gas in my chest. I don't know what I drank. Anyway, I decided that they were going to have elongated age brackets, essentially double the lifespan of a human. And this means that they would be in like their teen years for way longer than you would think they would be. Their age ratings are kind of skewed. Pretty happy with how this came out. They live longer, but not long enough that they're unfeasible as people. And their race advantage and disadvantage is that they have a bonus die to intelligence rolls. This is why I brought up that distinction, because having a bonus die on intelligence rolls, you make an intelligence roll when you lose 5 sanity or more from a single event. That includes like casting a spell, seeing like a ghoul or something, or witnessing a horrific brutalization, depending on the GM. If you lose 5 sanity or more from a single encounter, you now need to make an intelligence check to avoid temporary insanity. More specifically, you want to fail an intelligence check, because in this game we roll low, but this intelligence check you're rolling high. With this bonus die, I wanted it so that gnomes would have an easier time learning spells and solving traps and whatnot, but they also have an easier time dealing with that temporary insanity. That was my idea, at least. In an actual playthrough, I'll probably make it so that gnomes hit temporary insanity a lot faster, so a gnome wizard in my setting would actively be careful when casting like shriveling or something like that, because it's way easier for them to hit temporary insanity. But that one I would just play by ear. Their disadvantage is a penalty die to all appearance rolls. All of these advantages and disadvantages, I left them as one thing gets a bonus die, one thing gets a penalty die. I left them simple. The KISS philosophy. Keep it simple, stupid. So they'll have a penalty die to all appearance rolls because I wanted gnomes, again, to be a very closed off and just not very approachable people. So that's gnomes. On to elves, the ancient ones, the guardian race. I wanted them to be Lord of the Rings elves, objectively better in every way. And that was really hard to get across with a limited spread of dice to work with and +6s. Strength is going to be at like 46, and con is going to be at 2d6, because elves are strong. Lots of these are at 46. Elves are strong, graceful, beautiful, and powerful. So these 3d6s get bumped up to 46s. But in a lot of media depicting elves, they are very prone to poison and disease, especially from evil. So all of these extra die come from somewhere. They have the same size stat as the gnome, but since they have increased strength, they're actually far more likely to have the same build as a human. 1d6 plus 6 and 4d6 added together, after both are multiplied by 5, is about the same as 3d6 times 5 and 2d6 plus 6 times 5. They have the same chance, but more strength, less size, which does mean that gnomes, halflings, and elves have less hit points than humans. Humans become the tanky race because it's what they've got going for them. They're very big. So elves have 46 in all these. Their sizes drop down. Intelligence and education are untouched, and their luck is crippled. I wanted to get across that elves in all media, especially stuff like Lord of the Rings and stuff, are very, very unlucky. Like, impossibly unlucky. It's always the tragedy of the elf, or the end of the elves. So, they have, like, no luck. Really good base stats, but if you're playing with the luck variant rule, where you can spend luck to make a roll better, an elf is going to struggle, while a halfling is going to be incredibly happy. That was the idea I wanted to get across. I wanted them to not live for thousands of years, because I think that's boring, and no one understands how long 1,000 years actually is. The world fundamentally changed, what, 7 times in the last 1,000 years? With a lot of amateur fantasy writers when they're writing elves, because they'll have an elf live for like 30,000 years. Then you'll listen to more of their dialogue that the author wrote for them. And, oh, by 30,000 years, you meant 30. Just 30 years, period. No comma. Do you know how long a year is? No, you don't. Anyway, elves are considered ancient at like 240. They have 3 times the lifespan of a human. Elves are considered children for like 40 years. And that sounds right to me. For this as their special race advantage, they have a bonus die to all sanity rolls. I felt like that would be the perfect way to get across that elves are supposed to be the guardian race. They're supposed to protect the quote-unquote lesser races. They're supposed to be, again, I was thinking of Lord of the Rings elves, and I wanted them to be the guys, the heroes, the ones who rode up in Helm's Deep to help fight against the Uruk-hai. That's the advantage. And the disadvantage, okay, in Call of Cthulhu, giving something an extended lifespan is a fast way to break your future campaigns. The reason for this is because training. It can take months or years to learn stuff. Learn skills, new skills, pick up skills. I wanted to avoid the Dwarf Fortress elves. The ones who have been around since the beginning of the world, have endless lifespans, and are masterwork mace users that can parry dragonfire. I wanted to avoid that. I wanted to cut that out. I wanted to nip that in the bud. So their disadvantage is they have a penalty die on all improvement checks. This includes power. So if you succeed in a magic struggle, a contested power struggle, you have a pretty bad chance of improving your powers. Elf spellcasters would care a lot more for the meditation diet rituals that can increase their power through alternative means, because that's not counted as an improvement check, it just says make an extreme power roll. So I've rambled on for quite a while, but yeah, those are the races. I made 4 of them so far, and it's unlikely that I'll make more, but if anyone wants me to try and design some more, I can take a crack at Dungeons & Dragons and try and translate some from there over to Call of Cthulhu. That's all for now.